Hi, I'm Dave Matson, CEO of Sandler. Today I'm joined with a longtime franchisee, Chip Doyle, who has recently retired. We'll get to that in a second. But Chip, you joined us about 20 years ago. And
hmm
if you can think back, what was part of the decision process of why Sandler?
Yeah, well, I'd love to tell you that I had this, as a former engineer, I'd love to tell you that I had this, specific strategy. But quite frankly, I was working with a franchise consultant, and I was, dissatisfied with my job, and I just kind of saw myself as, I could be a sales consultant. I could be more of a management consultant. I couldn't run an ice cream store. Doing driveway resealing, just it was profitable, but it just didn't appeal to me. It wasn't compatible with how I saw myself and my self-image. And to be completely honest, I had no idea just how lucky I was to pick Sandler. I mean, I could have easily been sold a franchise for a very ineffective sales training company because there's a lot of them out there. But
Yeah.
I was just lucky. It's just pure luck.
So look, we've kind of grown up in this business together. You've had the opportunity to recently retire at a relatively young age compared to those who are still stuck in corporate America that will be there probably until they pass. Tell us a bit about how you grew your business and what you're doing now.
So how I grew my business is, of course, like any business, the first year was the hardest, and that took a lot of work. But I've always been very careful about managing my profitability. I mean, top line revenue is important, but I've always been intelligent, not frugal, but just intelligent about managing expenses. For instance, if I'm going to spend money on advertising, I'm going to spend a little bit of money on advertising and test it and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, well then, chalk that up to experience. If I'm going to spend money on an office, I'm not going to go crazy with the corner glass encased office that overlooks the big city. It's just I'm always just been very careful about that. And then another thing is hiring very carefully, hiring one associate or maybe two, being dependent. I mean, I've always been able to keep the doors open just with myself. Honestly, one of the reasons that this opportunity appealed to me is that me personally, I don't like the idea of having 35 people reporting to me, or, one of my buddies at the golf club says he's got 1,200 reports, and I'm like, that sounds like torture to me. So the idea that, I could just count on myself and get paid for my own hard work, those were kind of the philosophies that guided me along. And if you manage your expenses, you can make a lot of profit. I mean, one of the biggest issues as I got later on in the, about year 15 was taxes. You start paying an enormous amount of money to the government. And so you've got to, I mean, this is a good problem to have. I'm not complaining, but as long as you manage your expenses, you can do very well and make very large profit margins.
So what are you doing now?
What am I doing now? Well, I'm not doing any more sales coaching, but I'll tell you what, I do have equity in a couple of the companies that I worked with over many years. And obviously, I'm keeping an eye on that, and I call them up once in a while and see how they're doing.
Checking your mailbox for the checks.
Yeah, right, exactly. Or, options and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of exciting, actually. It was not, that's another thing too, is was not a core part of my business when I was a sales coach. But, every now and then an opportunity like that would present itself, and I would never encourage a Sandler trainer to only get paid in equity. They should always get some cash component. But that's been a really nice thing, and I've been able to save a lot of money. So I'm playing lead guitar in a band now, which is very cool. That's something I've wanted to do my whole life, and I'm actually playing lead guitar. I'm trying to learn how to sing. I've worked with a Sandler person here locally to turn over all my customers, and that's going to be financially lucrative for both of us. So I'm definitely talking to him, once or twice a week and making sure that everything's going well. And when he's got questions about, ABC account and who is this Mary person and why is she so rude to me on the phone, I can say, well, that's Mary, and don't take it personally. So I got a lot going on. I'm playing a lot more golf. My handicap is 1 as of today. So yeah, I shot a couple of rounds under par this summer.
Wow.
So, life is good. And of course, I'm learning to cook. I'm doing a lot more stuff. I'm doing a lot more of the cooking for the family.
There you go. You
Yeah.
mentioned early on that you were at the golf course with somebody that had 1,200 employees. You're like, I didn't want to do that. I think Sandler, and I'd love your perspective, is unlike any other franchise. If you bought, let's just say, a hamburger franchise, you got to burn that hamburger for 2.5 minutes. The alarms go off. You got to flip it back over and then burn the other side for 2.5 minutes. And you have to follow a very prescriptive model or they kick you out.
Right.
That's really not what Sandler is. There's a lot of different models out there. You have some flexibility, although we guide you in each one of them. The decision of how you attack it based on your personal goals, your vision of what you are. Some love coaching, some love sales training. Can you talk a little bit about that flexibility and what it means?
Yeah. So, and this is also part of, I think, a big part of my financial success from being a Sandler trainer. Number one, I've always been more concerned with that the client learns the selling system. I know that sounds very basic and fundamental, but there are some sales training companies out there that just want to deliver content and they don't really care if the person learns anything or not, as long as they get paid. And for me, ethically, that just doesn't work for me. And I believe that that's made me more profitable because when clients learn this stuff, they remember you forever. And even if they don't need any more training, they send you more of their people and they refer you. So, a big part of my model is what do I need to do to make sure that the person can learn this stuff? Now, I found out from personal experience that I could not learn all of Sandler by just listening to the audio tapes I'm dating myself now, but I used to have stacks of audio tapes.
Yeah, me too.
And that I needed a coach. And my coach, I've had a couple of them from Sandler. They've all been, more than a couple. They've all been great. Some of them weren't even officially my coaches. They just would help me. And then, of course, the Sandler Network was always super helpful. You need a real person talking to you and teaching you how to, and having a dialogue with you. It's not just something like, mathematics where you can study it and learn how to do equations. You really need that interaction. So my business model has been a lot like this call where I'm doing a lot of, in fact, I ended up doing a lot of Zoom calls with people all over the country at various time zones. I used to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, be in front of this computer at 7 a.m. and crank until about 5 p.m. every day. And it was very profitable. But the key is that there's got to be that interaction. I hope I'm not upsetting anybody here, but if you don't have that interaction with the coach, it's just really tough for people to learn. Sandler, again, I told you I got lucky. It's much more comprehensive and much deeper and much more life-changing than anything I've ever would have dreamt in a million years. And I needed to learn a lot of the Sandler lessons myself. So I actually grew as a person in order to, be a better trainer for my clients.
Well, I think what you've said it's interesting because our mission is to provide world-class content, tools, training, consulting to any revenue-generating, customer-facing individual in any organization, which gives you total flexibility. You may be with a business owner today, and you could be teaching negotiating tomorrow if you choose, if that's part of your business model. I know you did a lot of coaching as well, right? So, yeah, I don't think you're ever going to run out of things to do.
Oh, I think I upset you once a few years ago when I told you, because you quoted, I saw you quote me on this on stage once. I said, you're giving us too much content, Dave. We can't swallow it all. We can't. And you're like, your blood vessels are popping out of your forehead because that's exactly the wrong thing you didn't want to hear. But there's no way one person can master all of the content that Sandler offers.
You don't have to.
What's that?
You don't have to.
But you don't have to, right? It's exactly, you don't have to, and you get to pick what you like. And I like working with technical people. I liked training companies that sold things that were really complicated and expensive. That's why you can see my little Sandler book in the background. That's why I wrote that book, because construction sales is very complicated and it's expensive as all get out. And I didn't want to do any retail. I mean, there's been some Sandler people who have been successful in other industries, but I was able to pick what I liked working with and what I was most passionate about.
So you said early on, you want to make sure that the clients really learn the material because you change people's lives and they and they'll give you referrals for the rest of their career, which is 100% accurate.
Yeah.
I think one of the most gratifying intangibles that I've experienced, I'd love your feedback, is how you impact people's lives. Talk to us about that a little bit.
It is amazing when you work with a young person who is in the formative years of their developing their family, and they call you up after a year and they say, Chip, I just want you to know, I told my wife she doesn't have to work anymore because I'm finally successful in sales and I'm making enough money, and it's been a real thing of pride for me personally. We can start to have a family now. We can start to have kids, and I'm going to teach my kids this stuff, Chip. I've had that conversation many times. I've certainly received tons of calls and emails from people when I announced that I was retiring, and many of these people want to stay in touch. Not for any business reason, but so we can go play golf or go have lunch or something. I mean, these are really, lasting friendships, and it really does make if they learn it, it will have a life-changing impact to the student, and it's very rewarding. I mean, the money's good. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. You need to get paid, but boy, I've never had any trouble, looking my mother in the eye and telling her what I do for a living. It's a high integrity kind of thing.
Well, I think even with that story about that, salesperson who can finally make enough money so they can have a family, their wife can stop working if that's what they choose to do.
Right.
I think you also get those from the business owners as well, right? When you've actually transformed their business. To your point, some of them even gave you stock, right? I mean, that's how much impact that you had on your business, because people don't give stock away lightly, right?
Yeah, I didn't have to twist their arm either, by the way. I mean, in fact, I'll never forget this quote. He goes, Chip, it's kind of weird when you got, what did he say? He said, when you have two commas in your income, it just kind of changes the dynamic of how people react around you. And I'm like, yes.
So true. We've published, I think, over 24 books now, and you certainly are an author. You mentioned that you produced the Selling to Homeowners the Sandler Way. I'd love for you to kind of share with you why you did that and what was your experience.
So first of all, it's always been on my bucket list. The goal setting stuff at Sandler, it all works. Yeah. And, when you put something out there and you start writing about it and you start thinking about it, it's amazing how opportunities present themselves. And I think it was you that called me and said, hey, we're looking at having this book about selling to homeowners. Would you be interested? And I'm like, oh my God, this is like a bluebird opportunity out of the sky. I've always wanted to write a book and say that I was an author, David. My next book, by the way, is going to be How I Deal with the Yips. It's going to be a golf book, and I may sell more of those than I did of the Selling to Homeowners. But anyway, it was hard work. I mean, it was a labor of love. It's not like you're going to get rich. Although I got to tell you, having your name on a book does open doors for you. You're going to get more speaking engagements. You're going to be invited to conferences that you wouldn't be invited to otherwise. And I certainly have had my fair share of those. But it was a lot of work, and there was a lot of back and forth and writes and rewrites again until you just literally couldn't look at the book anymore. You're just so, I don't want to look at it. But it was a lot of fun, and I'm glad I would do it all over again in a heartbeat.
Well, I think, we have different types of books at Sandler. We certainly have what I'm going to call brand books, like the Sandler Selling System. We've got How to Sell in a Particular Industry, which is what you've done. Very successful, because I know that you're a rock star in that industry. And then, of course, we've got the special topics, which I would say, for instance, motivating or negotiating or things like that.
Yeah.
So, and people come to us and say, look, I'd love to write a book. We have a ghostwriter that's assigned to people to help them do that, because obviously we would like you to be out there selling.
Yeah, but just be clear. The ghostwriter does not write everything. Okay, you've got to do the work. I don't want anybody to sign up for a book and think, oh my God, I thought I was just going to talk and the guy was going to write everything down.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. You got to put in. So, Chip, you've been here, as we've talked about, for over 20 years. The market has changed dramatically, right? We've been through a couple of recessions together.
Oh, yeah.
Learners are learning differently now. Things have changed. talk to us a little bit about how you've seen Sandler stay up with that, but equally as important, the dynamics between a franchisee and a franchisor, because in most organizations, as you know, because I know you deal with some franchise companies, there's always this, it's an us, them. And personally, I'm super proud that I don't believe we have that relationship with the theater.
No, that's another lucky thing. See, I didn't know about any of these dynamics. I didn't know to look in on any of this stuff. And actually, when I joined Sandler, it was a fairly turbulent time in retrospect. There was some things going on, and I was just a bull in a china shop. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And again, I've been very lucky that Sandler has done a really good job of, managing and integrating Sandler into everything that they do. There's no hypocrisy with how Sandler works with it. It's very collaborative with the franchisees, and things could have gone. There were opportunities, as you well know, David, where things could have gone a different direction, but it's just been a really positive experience. And the fact that you served under Sandler, and that you're running the thing, I'll give you some kudos. That's freaking awesome, and that really does maintain a lot of continuity.
Well, I think what I think is magical, especially now we're dealing with the pandemic and all the economic ripple effects with that. That as an entrepreneur, we want to be independent. We want to do our own thing. You want the guardrails the franchise offers, like the content and the systems and the process. But ultimately, you're by yourself. And I just think the way that the franchises and the trainers rally around each other is just awesome. And I don't think you find that in corporate America.
I have not had to call in any favors, but I have had some Sandler people who will remain nameless that had some difficult situations happen, things that were completely outside their control, and they asked for help, and everybody helped, including me. And there was never, when I first joined Ed Staub, who's like my Sandler father, he said, Chip, you're gonna see it's sort of like a family. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. But he's right. These are people that I've made friendships with that I will, if I was in, any city in the United States and I said, hey, I'm in town, you want to grab lunch? The answer would always be yes. The doors are open, and these are lifelong friendships that have occurred because everybody does work together. There used to be an issue with some of the Sandler people competing in similar territories, and that's really just, it doesn't work. Nobody wins, and so I've been pretty impressed with the collaboration of Sandler people even within the same territories.
Well, I think you almost have to deprogram them from coming out of corporate, right? Because it was
where it's dog eat dog, yeah. Zero-sum game.
You get shocked with that electric collar. If you go into somebody else's territory, you got to figure out ways to get around that. Right. It just takes time for them to drop that old way and come into this more collaborative way.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have been able to do my exit strategy if I hadn't been collaborating with Sandler people over the years. It's definitely, forget about ethics or integrity. It's just profitable to find ways to cooperate with your fellow Sandler people.
Yeah, well, right now you've got a soft retirement, and I don't mean that in a way financially, but you've actually handed over your client base to another local trainer. You're working with them. You still get to dabble, but you still get to say, hey, I'm out playing golf now, I'm doing whatever you'd like to do. And I think that's kind of a magical combination. So Chip, I really appreciate it. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. I've told you that many times. And so if you want to be like Chip, who controls their own destiny, controls their own lifestyle, why don't you give us a call at 410-559-2033 or email us at franchising@sandler.com. I look forward to the opportunity to helping make sure that this is your last career stop.